Today is April 24th, year 2022. The bike prices have gone up absolutely crazy a couple years ago when the pandemic began, and there is no sign of the prices settling down anytime soon. Case in point, the brand new Colnago C68, which was introduced a couple days ago, the frame set alone, it's about $7,700. Today, I'm going to talk to you about my Factor Ostro VAM and discuss where it stacks up amongst all the other super bikes, some overpriced. Stay tuned, let's talk about it. Hello everyone, how are you? This is yours truly, Diabetic Cycling, coming at you once again. And guess what? Guess who has COVID-19? I tested positive a few days ago. Now, I was really sick last weekend for about a couple of days. Steadily, I've been getting better and I feel pretty 100% today. I'll do another test later on today to see if I tested negative. Now, this channel here is a channel where I come to you and share with you my thoughts and opinions about cycling gear, stuff of that nature. And everything that I share with you here is brought to you by and sponsored by absolutely nothing other than my own wallet. Everything is something that I paid for. I am under no obligations to say anything that's mandated by someone else. I come to you from the perspectives of just a normal, regular guy you're gonna run into on your Saturday group ride. I ride maybe 3-4 times a week. I'm nothing special. I don't have any credentials of being an ex-pro. I don't work for any bike industry companies and nothing of that nature. I'm somebody that you probably would drop on that Saturday ride, and I may be consequently dropping you on a Saturday ride. So nothing special, just a normal, regular guy's perspective. If you're new and if you are into that sort of thing, please consider to subscribe, hit the like button. Absolutely do leave me a comment below, and so I can come see you more often. So while I'm not saying my opinions are necessarily better, I try to bring you absolute honest view versus somewhat skewed opinions of the pros who are looked after, or magazine editors that need to say certain things to keep the marketing advertisement money coming in, or certain YouTubers that do this for full time and they need to say certain things to be able to continue their channels going while being provided free gear to review. So I don't have any of that. So what I come to you with is absolutely unbiased, honest to God truth. All right, so let's talk about Factor's range of bikes. So Factor offers O2 and O2 VAM, which are the lightweight climber bikes. And then they have a Factor 1, which is the out and out full aero affair. Then there is the Ostro VAM, which I'm going to talk to you about today on my bike, which is what they call an all-rounder. Now, if you go back a few years ago, every bike company used to have this exact same thing where they had the climber bike, they had the aero bike, Then they had the like a comfort-oriented endurance type of bike, and some still do. However, you see things like Pinarello Dogma F series, which is all-arounder. Pinarello doesn't really necessarily make all-out aero versus lightweight. It's just one bike that does everything. So you watch the Tour or anything, Ineos or Team Sky previously, they just had one bike to ride. Consequently, a couple of years ago, I believe Specialized did the same thing with their Tarmac line of bikes, where they combine the lightweight and all-out aero into just one model that does everything, the all-arounder. So in that same vein, Factor has a thing called Ostro VAM. All right, so before I start talking about my Ostro VAM, let's sort of establish a baseline. Like I said earlier, I don't have any professional credentials that you would think of, so you may be wondering, why should I listen to you? Well, you don't have to. Now, so my perspective, my opinions and views are based on dozens of bikes that I've had the pleasure of owning and riding in the past, and those would include, like today, I'm riding Pinarello Prince, the Ostro, also Orbea Orca. Just recently came off of a BMC road machine. I've owned and ridden a couple of Giant TCRs, also Giant Defies, Specialized Olays. I've also had the pleasure of riding the Rosa Pininfarina Super King. Had Canyon, I was on a Canyon Ultimate, the super light bike, for a couple of years. Also had a Focus Izako Max, which was also light. Also rode Merckx San Remo, which was very stiff bike. Also had a couple of Cannondale Evos, high mod and non-high mod. Also rode Cannondale Synapse for a while. So everything that I bring to you, my opinions, will be based on my past experience of riding these bikes. So I think that covers really good gamut of bikes, and hopefully my opinions are grounded. All right, first, Factor facts and buying experience. So you can buy your Factor bikes from your local Factor dealers. Now, me, however, I bought it directly from Factor after last November. I saw a Facebook ad from Factor. It was a sponsored ad, targeted ad. And it said, we have bikes in stock. You can order it with the SRAM AXS and we could deliver right away. Okay, so I've been a SRAM rider for the last dozen years, so I jumped at the bit and it was a great opportunity to get on a Factor. So I ordered direct, and bike took about a couple weeks to arrive since the ordering. And if you are interested in unboxing of me doing the unboxing of Factor Ostro, I'll link it right here. So bike came about, I would say about 60% assembled. So I definitely needed to get my mechanic involved to build it out. The buying experience itself is pretty simple. They have a very well-designed, streamlined website where you could just pick and choose components. You choose your size, you choose the cockpit measurement the cockpit dimension that you want. You also could choose which wheels that you want. It's all Factor in-house brand black ink wheels, which I'll talk about more later. Then there's also seat posts, whether you want 0 setback or 20 mil setback, so options as such. And also you have optional items that you can pick, like an oversized rear pulley wheel at additional cost, and a couple different small options that you could add on to really bling it out. Okay, so for reference, I chose Factor size 52. Now, typically I would ride the stack of 530 and reach of 377. The Factor 52 for Ostro came in as stack of 523 and reach of 376, which was very, very close. Now, in terms of my body build, I'm 5'10". However, my torso is longer than it should be and my legs are shorter than it should be. So I buy bikes as if I was about 5'7", 5'8". So despite that funky proportion, my arm length is pretty normal, and then my hand size would be considered normal to small. So like gloves, I would wear medium for reference later when I talk about handlebars and such. So like I mentioned earlier, when I choose frame size, I always opt for one size smaller, which I feel really fit me well considering the measurements of my body. So that said, I'll give you some reference point, right? So on Pinarello, I ride 51.5. If I was on a Cannondale, I ride anywhere from 50 to 52. And then on a Cervelo, I would ride 51. On Giant, I ride small. And on a Canyon, I would ride either extra small or small depending on the model size. And the Orbea, I rode 51. My BMC was 51. So that's about, that should give you reference in terms of sizing. All right. Point number 2, let's talk about the my build specs. So as mentioned earlier, the bike was spec'd out with predominantly SRAM Force AXS. Now, those of you eagle-eyed viewers would have identified that I'm running SRAM red chain rings, and that's because I just had those chain rings laying around, so that's what I put on. Also, the ratio of the crankset that came of default factory stock was 48-35, I think, and I run 45-33 front rings. So my red spare rings happen to be that ratio, so I swapped those out. Everything else is a SRAM Force, and let me briefly touch on Force versus red. So obviously red would give you lighter weight at twice the cost. Well, maybe it's not twice, but it's quite considerably more. Now, the weight difference, more than half of that difference is gonna come from your crankset and the cassette. So if you wanna mix and match and have your money go farther, you buy Force and then just to swap out the red bits for the cassette and crankset only, and then you will make up most of that weight difference. And in terms of the whole red versus Force and Dura Ace versus Ultegra, if you're not on a pro tour team that's sponsored by SRAM or Shimano, where they're equipping you with the Dura Ace and red bits, and you're not a pro rider on one of those teams, really there is no point for you to shell out hard-earned money for the top tier components, because you're really not gaining any performance. So you're gaining in terms of a weight saving, but the weight saving there is literally 2 slices of pizza in a month, and you would have made that up. And to some respect, even 105 and Rival, your shifting performance and stuff of that nature would not suffer greatly just because you go down. Because of the trickle down technology and everything, you will still have outstanding performance on Force or Ultegra. If you have extra money burning a hole in your pocket and you want the bragging rights to say, hey, I'm on Dura Ace, and then sure, go for it. In terms of cockpit, they give you black ink VAM integrated, all one-piece cockpit. All the cables are hidden and it's very well designed, although it is probably a bit of a pain in the ass for my mechanic to fish all that through the headset and everything. But that's why I have the mechanic Force, because I'm more of a rider. I'm not a mechanical guy. So as far as the dimensions are concerned, it's a 100mm stem with a 40cm wide bar, and I always typically ride around 39 to 40 centimeter wide for my bar width, so it works really, really well. In terms of the wheels, the same affair. You got Factor's in-house brand black ink wheels. I believe the wheel options are wheel depth options are 20, 30, the 45s, which is what I got, and then the 60. Along on those wheels, they will spec out Goodyear F1 tires that are 25 mils. I don't know anything about these tires. I've never ridden 1 mile on these, because as soon as they came, I took them off because, one, they're not tubeless. I've been running tubeless for the last 7-8 years, and the black ink wheels are tubeless compatible. So I threw on my Pirelli race TLRs on there, the 28. And when I reached out to the customer service, they just said, hey, we don't have any 28s in stock. We're not gonna have any for a while, so this is what you're gonna get, so no choice. Final factory spec item that I want to talk about is a saddle, which Factor would give you the Selle Italia Boost. It's a shorter nose saddle with the center cutout channel. It only weighs 140 grams, by the way, so it's a super light, seems to be a great saddle. However, I did swap that out with one of my saddles. I typically ride 2 different saddles. I would either ride Selle Italia Techno all carbon saddle, super hard, or I ride fabric ALM Ultimate saddles, which is what you're gonna find on my Factor. Color coordinated, by the way. All right, let's start this review by touching on contact points. And contact points I pay special attention to because it is basically all the points that I'm interfacing with the bike, the hands-on. So the first thing that I will talk about is the aforementioned integrated cockpit. The handlebar itself, they're very svelte. They're very thin. So like diameter of the bar, like when you're in the drop, you will notice you're grabbing, what you're holding onto there is slightly thinner than like other bars, and that's what I'm noticing compared to some of the other bars. Although the Talon Ultra by Pinarello Most that's on my press, that feels even more svelte. So I don't know if that's the new trend the companies are going to, but it is very svelte, and with my medium-sized hand, they feel absolutely great. I loved having this, you know, the diameter. It didn't feel overly bulky, but it didn't feel too small. So I really enjoyed these bars. And then the drop is very shallow. So when you're in the drops, it's not like you're reaching down too far down. So that also felt really great. And it's just very, and it's very easy, you know, tasty drop. So it just, everything feels and looks just right to me. Now these would be considered the Aero, and I didn't get these because I didn't choose this handlebar because of being Aero. Now longtime viewers would know, and my friends would also know, that I always opt for Aero bar, because not because of the Aero gains, which there wouldn't be any in this situation. I choose Aero bar because they would offer flatter top surface where I just find it more comfortable for me to rest my palms on the flatter surface, wider, flatter surface when I'm grabbing the bar from the top position. As such, I find that extremely comfortable. That's why I choose Aero. Now, with this particular Black Ink VAM bar, what you will find is underneath the top portion, on the bottom side, there's a center channel groove where the cables will be fished through or tucked under. But because I'm running SRAM AXS, there's nothing there. Naturally, when my fingers curl up like this to hold onto the bar, I find my fingertips rest very comfortably in those grooves. And so, happy accidental coincidence, it feels absolutely comfortable. It's a custom fit when I'm holding onto that. As well as the whole topic of the one-piece integrated bar, obviously the cabling is very neat. However, another added benefit is when I buy these integrated bars, I don't have to worry about if the bar is centered against the stem when I'm tightening the stem bolts. Also, I don't need to worry about if the trajectory of the bar, it fits only one way, right? So my bars are not going to point up, my bar is not going to point down. It's always just going to be right. So that's why I prefer the integrated one-piece bar. Now, of course, another very important thing about the handlebar is I'm looking for compliance. I'm looking for comfort. I need to be able to have various hand positions so that I'm comfortable on long rides. Also, at the same time, if I've already put down 102 miles and I got 7 more miles to go, I don't want my hands to just be uncomfortable and fatigued from all day just riding, feeling all the road vibration as such. So I love the compliance when the bar can eliminate or eradicate a lot of that road vibration. This bar and the stem combination does that job plenty, along with the whole front end, including the fork. Now, also at the same time, I know it's sort of an odd saying when I want compliance, also at the same time, I want to feel the road feedback. So I don't want deadened feel when I'm riding. I want the road, I want to feel the road, especially if I'm leaning into a curve, into a turn. I want to feel the road, and it does a great job of sort of giving me the combination of the road feedback and the compliance all together. Now, another contact point, which is the saddle, I won't talk too much about it since I swapped out the factory saddle with the my own saddle. But the included Selle Italia booster saddle, that's a high-end, it leans towards a high-end with the carbon rails and center cuts, the shorter nose, everything. It's very in this type of saddle right now and should do most of you just fine as far as the saddle is concerned. The seat post is a full aero affair, so it's a proprietary Factor post. So again, like I said, it's an aero, so it only goes to fit one way, and you would have guessed it right. And I prefer aero posts, not because of the aero gains, but because I can't screw up the because I can't screw up where the saddle and the post would go into the frame, and it would be slightly towards this or slightly towards that. With an aero seat post, it's always going to be dead center, so I really dig that. And the little paint job that they have done on there, it's very tastefully done. It goes with the rest of the frame's design, works really well and looks sharp. Also, at the same time, what is great about this seat post is that it has a single bolt mechanism to mount the saddle as well as adjust the tilt and the fore and aft. You know, a lot of the times with the seat post, you have a 2-bolt system where you're like screwing the bolts up and down at a like weird angle. You can't really get in there with your wrench, and it's a pain in the ass. But this is super easy. You do it from the side. One bolt does everything. I have not noticed it moving around or anything. And then the seat post securing bolt sits at the junction of the top tube and the seat tube. Does great job there as well. Again, I have not noticed any kind of a slippage, so all is great on the seat post. So now let's talk about the frame and the fork. So the general appearance of the frame, I think this is pinnacle of what modern frame aesthetics would represent. You have a sloping top tube, you have dropped seat stays that are pencil thin. You also have very chunky down tube with the whole truncated foil camtail design. And then you have this beefy bottom bracket. And speaking of the bottom bracket, the bearings inside are from ceramic speed, so you got top quality component in there as well. The color combination of this frame set is what they call Soho Mix. It's predominantly white with a hint of gray, as well as there's some accents that are somewhat hidden in red and blue. You would have to actually look for it to find those bits, but just overall, when you look from the side or the front, just very clean looking aesthetics, combination of the lines and the color scheme. Great sharp looking bike. The fork is beautifully shaped. So from the side profile, it's a kind of a blade type of a looking design. It's very similar to the fork that I had on my Cervelo S3, which was an all-out aero bike, and my Orbea Orca. So from the side, there's a pretty decent surface space, and then from the front, you would see somewhat of an aero look because they are very thin from the front. Now, shoulder is pretty wide on the fork where you could fit easily, I'm running 28 right now, but you could easily fit 32 if not bigger. So plenty of tire clearance there. The fork does great job getting rid of any sort of unwanted road jitter, so zero complaint there. Combination of the fork, headset, and the cockpit does a great job with the assuring feel on the front end. Now, to me, the highlight of this build, highlight of this bike as a full bike, is actually the wheels. Okay, so when you order the bike, you are given just the wheels from Factor Black Ink only. They do not sell other companies' wheels to go with this build. So, like I mentioned before, you could choose from 20 mil, 30 mil, 45 mil, and the 60 mil. I chose 45 because I find somewhere between 45 to 50 depth to be happy medium all-arounder, truly, because you're not really suffering in terms of weight versus just traditional low-profile box rims. Or you're not losing a lot of aero gains by not taking an 80 mil deep wheel, because you know, you're going to be susceptible to crosswind issues when you go that deep. So 45-50 is about where I find a sweet spot, and these wheels, not only the depth, but these wheels roll absolutely stunningly well. They are easy to spin up, they maintain speed beautifully, very stable, no flex, and furthermore, compared to some of the other wheels that I've been riding recent days, crosswind protection is absolutely amazing. Unfortunately, I live in pretty windy area here out in the desert, and there are days when, you know, 20 mile per an hour wind is a normal day. So I'm gonna see 30 mile per an hour gusting day, 45, 50 mile. Of course, when it gets that bad, I don't ride outside, but every now and then you're gonna see this just gust blowing and it'll knock your bike down. The crosswind protection is absolutely superb on these 45s. The black ink wheels, you know, admittedly, these are gonna be high-end wheels based on the price range, and these things roll absolutely superb. Now, that said, I'm riding 45 in the front and 45 in the back. Now, if I know they don't make 50, but if I could, I would have loved to have outfitted my bike with the 50 front and the 60 in rear, and I think that would have been really, really good. Even for adding weight for like a climbing, I don't think I would suffer that badly. Now, let's talk about all-important ride. How does it ride? Okay, so it does not ride feather light like my Canyon Ultimate. That bike was sub 15 pounds. It does not slide through the dense foggy air like did with my Cervelo S3, so it's not as aero. However, when you're on your 100-mile Century ride, how likely is it that the entire course would be dead flat, where you could take advantage of the tight pocket and being aero all 100 miles? Rarely ever. How likely is it for your 100-mile ride to be all just continuous climbing up the mountains? Unlikely. Your ride is going to be a combination of both, and this is why you need an all-arounder bike such as this to tackle all the terrains that you're going to encounter, and this bike delivers plenty. The bike feels deceptively light when you are just cranking up to go up the mountain, and when you're tucked in with your elbows tucked in and you're trying to find that tight pocket, and it feels right at home being aero, despite it not being a full-on out-and-out aero bike. The bike feels grounded, solid, stable, and predictable in performance, and it handles with absolute surgical precision. Now, to draw a comparison and kind of give you an analogy, the bike rides and feels like a very finely tuned BMW M motorsport cars. Now, currently, my two main bikes are my Pinarello Prince and this Ostro VAM. They're two completely different bikes. They ride completely differently. As far as how the Prince rides in comparison, I'll talk more about that when I talk about that bike in a separate review video in a few weeks. Now, as far as how this bike rides, I don't want to sound douchey using douchey cliche or anything, but this is how I would put it. Now, if this gives you the cringy feeling because I'm sounding like a douche, I apologize in advance. But basically how I feel about it is this Factor Ostro almost as if knows what your maximum ability is, and it will help you get to that maximum ability and help you maintain that maximum ability longer and as best as you can. It doesn't go out of its way to like egg you on or anything. It just gives you and provides you with the maximum ride comfort and ability and performance and speed based on what you can put down. It'll give you that comfort. It won't waste any watts that you put down. So hence, I could really see why it is a bike that is raced by the Pro Tour team, the Israel Startup Nation Premier Tech. You know, normal guy like me really have no business riding a Pro Tour level bike, but the bike, I find it to be a pretty decent value, and I am really happy with this bike. I mean, how can you not like a bike that responds back every time with an assuring feedback, doesn't waste power, and just a fun day, just all day out on the saddle? All right, so in conclusion, this is not the most aero bike. This is not the most lightest bike. The bike at the fighting weight, I'm not a huge weight guy, so I don't really measure my bikes, but for this video I did weigh it. So with the pedals on, the saddle on, bar tape is on, I do have 2 bolts for each bottle cage, unlike some of the other douchey guys that only use one cage to one bolt per cage to make it light with the hollowed out titanium bolts and none of that junk. So like a bike as it needs to ride, fully equipped. This bike right now came in with the mixture of a Force and Red with the 45s in terms of the wheels. This weighs in at 7.99 kilograms, and that's about 17 pounds and 10 ounces. So it's not at the lighter spectrum side of things. Now, do keep in mind, it is a disc brake bike, so it's gonna weigh a little bit heavier than your rim brake bikes. But I don't feel that the weight is really weighing me down. Like I said earlier, it is a deceptively light feeling bike on the road. To me, how it rides is a lot more important. You know, case in point, what good does a 14-pound bike do when it rides like crap? So as a bike, as a full package, I find the bike to be super awesome, and I feel like there's going to be years and years of fun to be had on this bike as one of my main bikes. In what I look for in a bike, this bike really delivers aplenty. To wrap up, for what it's worth, I did have to reach out to Factor customer service while I was waiting for the bike, and also during the finer points that we were working out to spec out the bike. The response time was super fast, and they're cordial and professional. Found the whole experience to be pleasant there as well. Okay, well, that does it for this episode. I bring you these review videos as if you are someone that is considering to buy one of these, so that you may be looking for opinion from someone with unbiased opinions, and that's what I try to bring you. I have nothing to gain from this other than just helping you out as a fellow rider, and I hope that's what I deliver to you today in this video. So that's it for me today. If you stuck around this long, I appreciate your time. I know there's plenty of good content available on YouTube, and admittedly, this video is coming out a little bit earlier than I had hoped. I wanted to put in a little bit more B-rolls with my ride footage and everything, but me being sick and opportunity to ride with someone else to hold the camera for me was far and few between, so that didn't happen. So hopefully the video was enjoyable. Thank you. I've been Diabetic Cycling. You've been awesome. Until next time, you guys all take care and be safe out there. Until next time, I'm out.